Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome. It is episode number 127 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group and consultancy for product businesses. If you want to find out more about working with me one-to-one as your business mentor or as a consultant, then head over to resilientretailclub.com. Check it out. You can also find out more information about joining the club. And if you use the code 10podcast, that's 10podcast, you can get £10 off your first month. So today I'm going to be talking all about the number one most important thing that you can do for your business in 2023. And spoiler alert, the number one most important thing that you can do for your business in 2023 is to make yourself a plan. Before I dive into the episode, I also want to tell you about my 5-day challenge. It's coming up on the 23rd of January. We kick it off. It is 5 days completely free in a Facebook group. This is my 4th year running it. It is called Plan Your Sales 2023. And I can't wait because it's one of my favorite things that I do in my business. It's always such great energy. People get really into it and it's such a supportive atmosphere inside the group, and I can't wait for you to join me. So if you head over to tinyurl, that's tinyurl.com/sales 2023, and I'll also make sure that's in the show notes, then you can sign up and find out all about the 5-day challenge and what it is and how you can come along and join in and put together a plan for 2023. And I'd love to see you there. On to today's episode. So if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, this is the very first episode of 2023. Welcome to the new year. It is so exciting to have that kind of fresh new year feeling. And I want to talk to you about why creating a plan is so important. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, if you've been following me for a while, you know I'm an absolute advocate for planning. But I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more detail about why it's important. And to be honest, it has been an extremely uncertain time in the retail industry, of small businesses and for big businesses too, for quite some time now. So you may be wondering, well, what is the point of making a plan when so many different things change? For me, the most important thing about the plan is to really understand that it's not about getting things right, because no one has ever made a plan that turned out to be completely correct. It is about the thought process that goes into planning. And that for me is what makes it so valuable, so interesting, so useful for business owners, and why I'm such an advocate for planning. So I just want to run you through a few reasons why I feel like creating a plan for your business is the most important thing that you can do for 2023. And by creating a plan, incidentally, I'd say broadly speaking, what I'm talking about is having a sales plan, so knowing how much money you want to take, maybe already splitting that down by sales channels, so you have an idea of how much money you want to be taking for each different sales part of your business. So if you have wholesale, if you run events, if you have a shop, if you have an Etsy shop, whatever it is that you have, how you want that to break down. And I'd also say some broad goals as well. Sometimes I talk about what I call the financial and the functional goals. So sometimes it's about something you want to achieve in the business. So you want to get your own unit this year, or you want this year to be the first year that you got really consistent PR outreach, or whatever it might be. That might be your functional goal. You've got your financial goal, which is your sales goal. And then you've also got your fun goal. And I think fun goals are really nice to include, because they could be just things like, I want to get this particular celebrity to take my product and talk about it, or I want to see myself in this publication. Just something that's, not completely out of the question by any stretch of the imagination, but just something fun to aim for. So that's what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about a plan, I'm talking about There's different elements, the sales goals, what you actually want to achieve. And sometimes, even more broadly speaking, I'll ask club members or one-to-one clients to think about, like, how do you want the business to feel this year? I think it's really useful to think about all of these different elements, because that's really for me, the really important creative thought process that goes into creating a plan, and that really gives it its value as part of your role as a business owner. Why do I think that's so important? The first one really for me is about being able to see what you're trying to achieve. So if you think about a real actual target, if you had a bow and arrow and you were trying to shoot it at a target, if you couldn't see that target, you would have pretty much no chance whatsoever of hitting it. And it's the same in your business. If you just don't even know what you're trying to achieve, then it's going to be that much harder for you to actually achieve it. So for me, setting a goal means that you've got something clear that you're aiming for, and you can really go for it, and you are much more likely to achieve it. As I said, the whole idea about a plan is that not necessarily that you're going to actually hit it. You're not going to get it right. Nobody ever gets it completely right. But if you've got a plan and you've put something into place, then you're much more likely to achieve it, because you are going to be able to actually map out, have on a piece of paper, or wherever it is you do your planning, something that you're aiming for. So that for me is the number one thing. Like, how do you know if you've achieved success if you don't know what success looks like for you? And if you're going to say, well, but my goal is to sell as much as I can, I turn that back and say, well, how do you know that you've sold as much as you can? How do you know that if you've achieved that, is that something you can actually measure? So for me, one of the big pluses of planning is that it gives you something that you can actually aim for and helps you actually achieve it. A second thing that goes hand in hand with that really is motivation. So it can be extremely motivating. If you know you've got a sales plan and you're nearly there, then you might do that extra push, send that extra email, show up that extra time on social media, be that little bit extra chatty when you're at a fair or an event, because you're like, oh, come on, I just want to hit this. I want to make this sales goal work. I know it can be hugely motivating to hit and exceed goals. Again, that's another reason for me why you should do your planning, because it's really important to get that motivation and to be able to see when you've achieved what you're setting out to do. That's a very, very powerful feeling. And without that, it can just feel like you're drifting a little bit. I think that's the issue. And I've often said this to so many clients and club members. The irony is that when we start our own businesses, we often do it because we want a sense of autonomy, we want a sense of freedom, we want a sense of doing our own thing. But actually then sometimes what we crave and what we miss is that feeling that you get when you're certainly in education. As students, we're always aiming for something, and we're very much clearly graded on our performance. And then as you move into the world of employment, then you also have targets that you have to hit. You have appraisals, you have ways of measuring your performance. And then if you start running your own business, it can feel quite disorientating, because all of a sudden there aren't these same targets. But of course, you can set them. And even if the person who you have to be accountable to is yourself, it's still a really useful exercise to set these targets, because it can help motivate you. And as I said, there's nothing more motivating than having a target that feels exciting, that you hit, or that if you're close to hitting it and then you just do that final push to get you over the edge, that's all really, really exciting as well. So motivation for me is another really big reason for the planning process and setting yourself some plans. The other reason that I'm a big fan of the planning process is because for me, it's a way of you getting in touch with what you want out of your business. And I am a very strong believer that success, the definition of success, is completely unique to every single business owner. It's something I hold I take very seriously when I work with people one-to-one, when I'm talking to club members. I try to never make assumptions about what success looks like for them. I always want to know it from them. What does it look like? And I have no judgment at all about anybody's definition of success. For some people, that will be a bit of extra money each month for their family to help contribute to family finances, or maybe treat themselves to something nice every so often. And for some people, that will be multi-million-pound growth and plan to sell the business on to exit, or a plan to make it a household name. Those are equally valid. Everyone has their own definition of success. But what I like about the planning process is that it really encourages you to take a moment and to think about what that definition of success is for you, because it's very easy to get sucked into somebody else's definition of success. It's very easy to look at other people who maybe started around the same time as you and assume that they're doing so much better and that what they've done is correct and what you've done is incorrect, all of these things. And so taking the time out to plan, taking the time out to really think about what you want for your business is invaluable, because it really helps you shape that idea of what success looks like for you. So at this time next year, how do you want to feel? What do you want to be doing? Something that I do personally in my own business at least once a year is I write out my typical day, my imaginary typical day in a couple of years, 2-3 years time. Yes, absolutely, I'll have an idea of what I want my financial goals to look like. To be fair, I don't think I've mapped my financial goals out 5 years in the future, but what I'm trying to envisage is me working towards something and what I'm working towards and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. Not so much what that looks like in terms of the numbers, but more like what I'm doing, what activities I'm doing, what support I have in my business, how much I'm working, when I'm taking time out of the business, who I'm talking to, who I'm working with. All of those things are important for me to think about. And they help me as I'm planning for my business to really make sure that I'm not kind of veering off in the wrong direction. I'm not doing things that are not bringing me joy. I'm not doing things that are not aligned with what I'm trying to build. And I'm really focusing in on working towards my vision of success, which incidentally, I've been doing this exercise for 5 years now, and my vision of success, as it were, has remained really consistent. So every time I sit down and I think, okay, what am I actually trying to work towards? And a lot of it is to do with balance, having time with family, having time for interests, as well as doing work that I really love and enjoy. The decisions that you make about a business that you're trying to build to give you a very specific lifestyle are going to be different to decisions you make about a business that you're trying to build for investment and exit. So it's really useful for you to know what you're trying to do before you start trying to do it. And so for me, that is a really valuable part of the planning process. It's like a reaffirmation about what I'm doing. And it also helps at those times where we all have those times where you get, a difficult email, or you have a difficult sales month, or you do something that doesn't feel right and you feel a bit lost, or you feel like you need to reevaluate, or maybe you feel a bit demotivated. And if you want to pack it all in, if you've taken that time to really connect with your vision of where the business is going, then it can be much easier to reconnect with that at a time when you need to. So for me, that is a really invaluable part of the planning process, and one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about doing it at this time of year. Then another point I'd like to make is that making a plan helps you prioritize, exactly as I just said, in terms of helping you understand the kind of business that you're trying to build. But then that also helps you prioritize what's important to you as a business owner. Is it about bringing in more staff to support you so you've got more free time? Or is it about trying to learn new skills so you can keep as much profit as possible from the business yourself, because that's something that you need for you, for your family situation, or because that's the real purpose of the business, is to give you as much as possible. The other thing I think that's really important as well is that it's very, very hard to make really good, strong business decisions when you don't really know what sales goal you're aiming for. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you've got sales growth and it's been growing, and you start thinking, I need to get a unit. But unless you can actually say, right, this is how much I think I'm going to be selling this year, this is how much the unit's going to cost me, do I have enough revenue to look at this additional cost? Then it gets really, really tricky to map things out accurately. It just feels like everything's sort of a bit fluid and a bit loose, and it can be really hard to make decisions that feel good and feel controlled around expenses in your business. So whether that's more staff members, whether that's a different unit, all of those things get harder to do when you don't have a clear idea of how much money you're bringing in. Because the question of whether or not you should do something pretty much always relates back to, well, what do you think your sales are going to be? If your sales have been on a really strong upward trajectory for a long time, and you feel really confident that you're going to at least match 2022 and 2023, if not exceed it, then you can start looking at that, work out how much of that's profit, and work out how much money you've got to play with for your expenses. This is something that I go into in a lot of detail in my book, Tame Your Tiger, which is available for pre-order. You could go to bookshop.org and search Catherine Eardley, Tame Your Tiger, or you can go to my website, resilientretailclub.com, and pre-order it there. It's coming out in February the 21st. I can't wait. I'm so excited about it. But there's a whole chapter there about this idea of understanding your numbers and being able to map out what your sales are versus what your expenses are and how that helps you make business decisions. But for sure, one of the big reasons for doing your planning process each January is to help you, or whenever you do it. I know lots of people, other small businesses will be doing it in December, but for a lot of product businesses, they just don't have the mental capacity for that. So it's going to be a January job. When you're mapping it out in January, mapping out those sales is just so, so important. It can just help you really understand what you should be committing to, what you could commit to. And also sometimes it can show you if you're just actually underspending. I've certainly seen it where people have seen massive growth in their businesses and then they're refusing to spend even a small amount to get themselves some help. So then they end up with a bottleneck. Lots of things to think about there. But again, that's a really important piece of the puzzle, if you like, that you just can't get to unless you do your planning. So I'm a big fan of planning from that perspective because it helps you prioritize and helps you understand really what you've got the money to spend on. The other reason that I love the planning process, my final reason, maybe the most important, is that I really truly believe that planning is a highly creative process. And if you're somebody who struggles with the idea of it because it feels too restrictive or too dry, then I would challenge you to find a way of planning that feels really natural to you. If you don't like working on the computer, if you don't like spreadsheets, can you do it on paper? If you would prefer to have a big wall planner up with a load of post-it notes, then do it that way. If you prefer to run your business entirely from a series of notes on your phone, then if that's what works for you, then that's what works for you. But just take the time to plan because, this really makes me sound like some kind of like cheesy Instagram post from like 2018, like one of those quote posts that used to be all the rage. But planning is a form of dreaming really, but dreaming with kind of numbers against it and sense checking things. And for me personally, I recognize I'm probably quite unusual in this, but for me personally, when I'm thinking about my business, I almost have to think in numbers. I have to create a model or play around with various different scenarios just to kind of help understand how I feel about things, like how much I can commit to. Could I afford this expense? What would happen if this happened? A best case scenario sales result versus a slightly more pessimistic view. Would it all still work if I didn't quite hit my goal? And that can give me a real confidence to go for it, knowing that, well, do you know what? Even if I don't quite hit this goal and it's all still going to be okay, or, hey, look at what could happen if I exceeded this and this is what I could be doing in my business. So for me, it's very much a form of almost like formalized daydreaming. So I'm thinking about different things. I'm thinking about different scenarios and mapping them out. And maybe even if you're not going to sit there and map out all the numbers for all the different scenarios, I definitely encourage you to take the time to plan and to do it in a way that works for you, to do it in a way that feels creative, it feels fun. Lots of people that I've spoken to who've been converted to the idea of planning after I've lovingly rammed it down their throats repeatedly. Lots of people will say it's actually very freeing because although you may not want to have a detailed plan that is telling you what you must do every single day of the year because that just fills you with horror, then lots of people will tell me that they find it freeing because they've got a framework. So they know that loosely speaking, if they follow this framework, everything should work out without feeling overly restricted. The other thing I would suggest is that if you literally cannot bear the thought of looking a year ahead, and I certainly know lots of people who run businesses, a few people in particular who just really don't enjoy the process of looking forward a year, do it for a quarter, do it for the next quarter. Think about the next 3 months, think about what you want to achieve and try it that way. Just start small and go from there. And maybe one day you'll learn to love it so much you'll do yourself a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan, and who knows where it all might end. And of course, if I've convinced you the importance of planning because it gives you a target to work towards, it helps you get motivated, it helps you be in touch with what it is that you want for your business, it helps you prioritize where you can spend your money. Also, I should say as well, for a lot of people who are first starting out, planning is one of those processes that helps them really feel like this is it. I'm actually running a business, not just, as people sometimes say to me, I'm just selling stuff. it really helps them move from feeling like someone who's kind of dabbling to someone who's actually got a clear plan. It can be quite a transformative for their mindset as well. So if I've managed to convince you by talking about all of these things and just how creative the process can be and how enjoyable, and in fact, I'd love to know if you do this process and you actually enjoy it, you have to come back and tell me. If you feel like you need some support, then please come along to the free 5-day challenge. As I said, if you go to tinyurl.com/sales2023, that's tinyurl.com/sales2023. Come along and do it with us, because what we do is we have short, easy tasks every day. Each task video is maybe 3 to 5 minutes long, and they drop into the group first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. So if you need to get it done before the day starts, you absolutely can. And if you need to come back at any point during the day and watch it later, then you can. 5 very simple, easy tasks that build one on top of the other, help you really come up with some great ideas for your business, help you really look forward into 2023. There will be, there's usually a couple of hundred other businesses in there. So lots of people to bounce ideas off. I'm in the group every day. I do a live every night, talking about planning, talking about running a product business, talking about who knows what, whatever we want to talk about each night. So it's just so much fun. I really do invite you to join us. It's just so inspiring to see everybody coming up with ideas for the year, and people just absolutely love it. As I said, it's one of the things that I do in my business that I think I get the most positive reaction from. This will be my 4th year running it. But yeah, people just really get so much out of taking the time, and it's often much, much easier than they think and much more enjoyable. And then at the end of it, they have a plan for 2023. And of course, if you're thinking that's all well and good, but I actually just need to sit down with someone and make the plan together, then that's fine too. Go to resilientretailclub.com, take a look at my business audits. They've been super popular. I have, I think, 1 left for January, and then I have some slots in February. We can work together to make your plan for the year with me, 1-to-1. So go check that out as well. Otherwise, happy planning. I hope to see you in the 5-day challenge. Come on over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club and tell me what you're going to do. Are you going to make a plan? Have you made a plan? How do you feel about the planning process? Have I managed to convince you after talking about it all of these times? And I can't wait to see what 2023 has in store. If you have a moment, of course, to rate and review the podcast, it means the absolute world to me. I appreciate every single rating and review. And of course, if you are in iTunes, you can subscribe. And if you're in Spotify, you can follow the podcast and you'll be the first to know about every new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.